Indecision forms everywhere on your chart. In a previous video, I discussed the three main stages of price movement: the trending stage, the ranging stage, and the transitionary stage. Indecision can form in all of these stages. You often see indecision in trending stages. You see a lot of indecision in ranging stages, and you see indecision in transitionary stages 100% of the time. Not all indecision is tradable though, and that is why it's called indecision. It just means that price is undecided. But being able to identify indecision is important. So let's go through a few charts and I'll show you some examples of indecision on a live chart. We're going to start with indecision in trends. Okay, here we have a nice strong bearish trend. This trend is pretty easy to identify, and you should be able to identify trends by now. But even within this bearish trend, we're seeing signs of indecision. For example, here, we see price struggling to push down. We see consecutive candles pushing up, down, up, down. We see candles with long upper wicks, relatively long lower wicks, and small bodies. So these candles all indicate that price is undecided. Let's zoom in a little bit. So instead of price making any significant ground to the short side, for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candles, it kind of stalled and it stayed stuck in the same area. Now the indecision will be a lot clearer if we go up to a higher time frame. So let's place a vertical line here, so we can find this position when we switch up to the daily. Okay, now on the daily chart, the indecision looks a lot clearer. It looks a lot more like a classic indecision candle. There are 3 candles on the daily chart. They all have long upper wicks. They all have short lower wicks, or decently sized lower wicks. And they all have pretty small bodies. Most of these have seemed to close pretty much where they opened or within a few pips from it. So this indicates a lot of indecision over a period of 3 days. These candles are strong indecision candles, but they wouldn't have led to anything really tradable. They're just showing us that price is undecided for 3 days, but then it continues on its downtrend. It's quite often that you find indecision inside a trend. Even further down over here, we see brief indecision in the trend. We see buyers tried to push up. They tried to gain some ground to the bullish side, but eventually sellers pulled them back down and then the downtrend continued. So indecision in a trend is very common. You're going to see it pretty much every time you see a nice strong trend. There are going to be periods in that trend where price becomes undecided and it stalls for a little bit. Here is another example. This one might not be as clear, but it is still a pretty good example of indecision in a trend. Here it is, that candle there. Now, you might be looking at that candle and thinking, but that's still kind of bullish, but read that candle's story. What's the story of this candle telling us? It's telling us buyers tried to push up. We can tell that from the upper wick. But they couldn't really maintain that high, so sellers pulled them back down to near the open price. We still got a kind of small bullish body here, so buyers were able to close higher than they opened, but overall they weren't able to gain any significant ground to the bullish side. Now this, again, is going to look a lot clearer if we switch to a different time frame. So let's place a vertical line again, just so we can easily find this, and go down to the 6 hour. Okay, here it is on the 6 hour. On the 6 hour, we clearly see the indecision. It looks a lot clearer. It's actually closed with a bearish body. It has a nice long upper wick, kind of relatively long lower wick. So we can more clearly see this kind of stall in the trend. This stall where price became undecided. Buyers tried to push up, sellers tried to push down. Neither side could gain any ground, so it was undecided. It was an undecided period, otherwise known as indecision. So that is indecision in trends. Like I said, it is very common and you're going to see it a lot. Now, what about indecision in ranges? That is a lot more common. Here is a pretty good example of it. Let's zoom in a little bit. So you should be able to identify ranging stages by now. This here is a pretty strong ranging stage. Price was ranging between around about here and here for quite some time. Remember, this is a 12-hour chart. So every two of these candles represent 1 day. So it was ranging between these levels for quite some time. Now, during this range, there was a lot of indecision. Look at this candle here. What does this candle tell us? Tells us sellers tried to push down, couldn't maintain that short move, that down move. Buyers pulled back up. Again, the candle that came right after it. Sellers tried to push down, couldn't maintain that move. Buyers pushed them back up. Then we have two strong bullish candles. We have a strong bearish candle. Then again, indecision. Buyers tried to push up. They couldn't manage that move up. They were pulled back down, followed by a bearish candle. Then we have a nice strong bullish candle. Then we have indecision again. Buyers tried to push up. They couldn't maintain that long move. So they got pulled back down by sellers. Then we have kind of indecision. Sellers tried to push down. Buyers, but they couldn't make any ground to the short side. Then we have indecision again. Sellers tried to push down, but they couldn't maintain that low, so they got pulled back up. Indecision again. Buyers trying to push up. They couldn't maintain that high. Sellers pulled them back down. I'm sure you get the point. Ranging stages, it's just full of indecision. That's why it's ranging, because it can't really push up, can't really push down. It can't make those big candles that you need in order to see a trend. These are the big candles you need in order to see a trend. Candles like that one, candles like that one, that one. All of these candles, those are the candles you need in order to see a trend. But in a ranging stage, you don't get those candles. You just get indecision all the time. And that's why price ranges, because it can't move up significantly and it can't move down significantly. So in ranging stages, you find a lot of indecision. Now, what about transitionary stages? Transitionary stages, I said at the start of this video, have indecision 100% of the time. So what does that mean? Well, when you're in a trend and you get a transition, that transition occurs with indecision. It is a transitionary stage because you're getting indecision, and at that point of indecision, you get that change, that switch between trends. Sometimes trends do go from one trend to the other. So sometimes you are going to get a bearish trend turn into a bullish trend straight away without indecision. But that just means there's no transitionary stage there. But when you get a transitionary stage, and I'll show you a few examples now, when you get a transitionary stage, it always has indecision, because that's what a transitionary stage is. Indecision at the top or the bottom of a trend. So here we have a kind of bullish trend here. It wasn't a perfect bullish trend. We had a move by buyers and it stalled for a bit, started ranging a little bit, but then it continued up. So overall, this can be classified as a bullish trend. Then at the top of this trend, what do we have? We have indecision. Buyers tried to continue that move up, but they couldn't maintain that move, could they? Sellers pulled them back down. Sellers tried to push down. They tried to make a new low, but they couldn't maintain that low. Price closed pretty much where it opened, right there. So that is very strong indecision at the top of a trend. That is a transitionary period with indecision. Now, you're going to find lots of examples of these. Here is another one. Here are two actually. We'll start with this one because it's one of the clearest ones. So here we have a very, very small bearish trend consisting of only two candles. But at the bottom of this trend, we have sellers trying to continue their move down, but they weren't able to maintain that low. Buyers pulled them back up to here. Buyers tried to push up. They didn't gain much ground and they weren't able to maintain the ground that they gained. Momentarily gained, and they were pulled back down to the open price pretty much. Then after that, buyers took control of price and pushed price up. So again, that is a indecision candle forming at a transitionary period. We have another transitionary period here. So sellers pushed down for 3 consecutive candles. Sellers were mostly in control of price for these 3 consecutive candles. Then when we got to the bottom of this trend, Sellers tried to continue to push down, we can tell that by the long lower wick, but they weren't able to maintain that move. Buyers pushed them back up and they closed above open. But they didn't really gain much ground above open, did they? So this again is indecision. Sellers tried to push down, buyers tried to push up. Neither of them can make any significant ground on the short side or the long side. So that is indecision. Price is undecided. So here you have indecision forming in transitionary stages. So indecision happens pretty much everywhere on your chart. I'd go as far as saying is that most candles on your chart are indecision candles. Learning to spot the right indecision candles in the right places is something that you'll be learning in later lessons because that is the core of my trading strategy. But for now, you've learned what indecision is and how to identify it.